And we are live. I'm your host, Marky Mark. We are the Divided People. To the left of me,
I'm Lance Tillman, your co-host.
and across from me, we have...
Bub Tucker.
He is a candidate running for mayor of Ponchatoula. And...
A local businessman, an entrepreneur. What all you got going on? You got a lot going on.
I got my hands in a whole bunch. I do. The more the merrier. I think because I come from a financial investment background when I previously worked for New York Life, diversity is key. So I try and put as many irons in the fire and as going as one time. And I guess I kind of revert back to my days in the plants where I worked in the petrochemical industry. It was 7 days a week,
that's
14, 15, 16 hours a day. And every day's Monday. You just get up and go to work. So, that's kind of how I live my day-to-day life. I do work for myself in pretty much everything I do. So if you don't get up and you don't go to work, you don't make any money. So you have to be a driver. You have to be driven. So that's what I do. I just try and get in as much stuff as I possible. If it makes money and it makes sense, then let's talk about it.
So let's get right into it. You're running for mayor. What made you want to run for mayor? What is the thing that drove you to even make this decision?
Well, I guess the biggest deciding factor was me, being I was raised in this hometown, in this small town, I should say, all my life. So I was a graduate of St. Joseph right here in downtown Ponchatoula, Catholic school there. I then went to Ponchatoula High School, or graduated Ponchatoula High School, and I also have an undergraduate degree from Southeastern as well. So I've lived here all my life. I've seen us come from a small 2-lane highway kind of going through the middle of downtown where everybody waved to everybody. So now we have a gross influx of people, which we love to see. Not trying to shun anybody out or anything like that. It's time for growth, So that's the biggest thing that kind of, I guess, sparked me to get in this was seeing how we've taken on all these large businesses around town. And knowing from a business-minded person like myself is that brings in a large tax basis. I can't see where it's being put to good use.
I'm glad you said that because when I made the post about anyone has any questions, my brother-in-law contacted me. He's like, hey, during the Strawberry Festival, we used to see local business people all up and down selling their produce. Now, the last couple years, you've been seeing them on the side of the interstate or out of town and it turns out it was because of the fact that they put a large tax or a fee for the license, and they were telling us that, no, they're not, we're not making enough to even cover that. We're going to lose money doing that. And so I'm glad you said that because it seems like lately the business is slowly being pushed out by all the fees being risen and a tax coming up too on it.
Yeah, I'm not real sure what fees there are that those guys incur or what the city charges. I've never had a booth or anything like that. At the Strawberry Festival.
It's run by the city. The city decides all that.
Okay.
I don't even know. I'm not even sure. That's
I'm not 100%.
What I heard.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a.
I heard from multiple people that that's what the city decided to do. That it was it was a
Some
city
people
fee or something like that, and that's why they're moving now by the interstate.
Well, I can tell you this: the Strawberry Festival was set up. It's supposed to be strictly nonprofit, which I think the majority of the grounds, if not all the grounds, are, if I'm not mistaken. Which is great, but at the end of the day, I've looked at this a little bit as well. I don't think the city itself, as far as that's concerning, I don't think the city makes a whole bunch of money on this. It's my understanding that up until a couple of years ago, or last year even maybe, that the city was having to foot the bill for the policemen that were there and the details and everything else.
A lot of times it's just to drive commerce, get there.
That's right.
I know there's a lot of festivals in a lot of areas I've been to.
Well, it's very vital to our community, and I think it's not anything that you ever want to push out, and you don't want to kind of change it if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Right.
But I always think that there is a time and a place to sit down and have a discussion about how we can make things better.
I agree. So what about some of your topics that you're really big and passionate about? I know you were big about reviving the downtown area and the brown water issue. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, I think there's a bunch of topics that we can get to in downtown. So I guess the big thing everybody's going to kind of talk about is the brown water. That is a crucial when to me. When you're sitting in the living room and your kids are taking a bath, and one of them hollers out, "Hey, Dad, the water's brown again." It's not only aesthetically, not pleasing to the eye, but you think about it. What am I ingesting? What is really going in and out of my body? Nowadays with cancer as rampant as it is, et cetera. What are we putting in our bodies? You know what I mean? So it's really kind of scary. It's because we're sitting here and we're paying for water, and you expect to be provided clean drinking water.
And they claimed it was a lot better, but
yeah, and that's funny. I'd like to dig into the details of that award that's posted in City Hall and find out exactly where it come from, who voted on it, and things like that.
I thought it was kind of weird. That's been going on for years now. The brown water.
It has. We've dated it back through Facebook posts and whatnot all the way to 2013.
Yes, because I remember being a teenager. And always used to be funny. When the water goes brown, we hear nothing, and like 3 months later, we get a letter from Ponchatoula saying, "Hey, water was brown at this date," and it's like, man, that's 3 months ago. Like we've already been adjusting it.
I've been up there a bunch, and I've kind of even kind of pounded my fist on the podium a few times at council meetings trying to get these people's attention about it, and that's kind of was another driving factor for me for entering this race. I think the people have a voice. I think the people want to be heard. I don't think they have an avenue that they trust to even go to have their voice heard. So one of my initiatives of bringing Ponchatoula completely online and downtown is concerned. If Hammond's got downtown Wi-Fi, why can't Ponchatoula apply for the grants or work on getting downtown Wi-Fi in Ponchatoula? What I'd also like to do is really re-innovate how we work things from an operational standpoint in our downtown office. Why can we not have live chat rooms with council members? You're in a district, you're a registered voter. Okay, so you're part of this district chat room. What that allowed me to do as a mayor is simply, because I'm not a guy that's going to keep my finger down on you, so to speak. Okay, I like to get people, I like to know what they're doing, that feel confident in doing it themselves. I like to give them a level of autonomy where they can go out there and get their work done. Okay, what that allows me to do, if we bring the city online and we have these live chat rooms, when you ring in and you say, okay, Mr. Virgil Sandifer, who run unopposed, great man, by the way. You call him up at a certain time, you got a problem, or you email him, okay, in a live chat room, where I can go back as a mayor and have access to all that stuff, where I can easily go back there and say, okay, constituent Mr. Virgil here had this problem going on at this date and time, then reach out and see, or be able to see in that chat room how my council member responded, and then find out what was the end all be all of that goal without having to, and it's a very easy thing to do. I think we already have some of the software in place there to do it. I just don't think we've implemented it.
Yeah, I find that a lot, especially when even in businesses, when older groups and older generations are in there, they get the technology, they're given the tools, but they're not even taught how to use them. And then they're just sitting around collecting dust. Everybody goes, "Hey, how'd you like that tool?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, it's great." And they're not using it all. I mean, we experience that in our day-to-day lives.
I can tell you guys this: I'm a big person on technology. It's very integral in how I run my business, and it allows me a lot of freedoms that I wouldn't necessarily have if I did things the old way. For instance, I run a real estate brokerage and deal with clients all day. I have 2 cell phones. Okay, most people got one, don't want to carry one. I carry 2 because you want to know why? Between these 2, I can pull up something on this phone and I can be writing a contract on this phone. I'm doing it all mobily. So there's a lot of things we can do that make things run more efficient in that downtown office.
What about? Let me ask you about your police officer. What do you think about the police officers in Ponchatoula, and as far as what do you plan to do with them, and how do you think they're currently acting?
Well, I can tell you this. I think everybody knows just from past comments in news articles and past interviews that there's always been some type of, I guess not really a disagreement, but it doesn't always appear that the chief and the mayor are working together. I think that's very vital for any downtown. As a mayor, you're over the safety and the protection of everyone, but that also includes the gentleman that is there to serve and protect, which is the police chief and his officers beneath him. This is 100% factual. I don't think that the mayor or the council members have ever voted to even pay for bulletproof vests for our police officers. So not only do I think that we need to start working more with our police chief, I would like to see added police officers in town. People don't understand this. If you say, "Oh, well, we can't pay police officers," well, understand this: policemen write tickets. They write tickets when you're not following the law. Okay, and it's not that we're out there to hound you and write tickets. But if you look around town, especially I live in the downtown area, even though you took some stop signs up, all it did was increase people's speed around town. People blow through stop signs left and right. We're 25 miles per hour in downtown, and I see people that are going 55 miles per hour through downtown. Unfortunately, there was a young man whose family, by the name of the Satoons, their son was tragically run over and passed away in town. That was a very tragic event. Could it have been prevented? I think yes and no. You know what I mean? If we had a more police presence in town, would people not speed so much in town? Maybe drive through a little more careful because, maybe I don't want to be caught texting and driving on my cell phone because Ponchatoula's got police officers here and they're going to write tickets. Right now, currently, from what I understand from the chief, is that we only have, on a day-to-day basis, as far as traffic officers are concerned, I believe, we've got 1 officer assigned to each quadrant of town. All right, so when you're in a downtown area and there's streets and think houses back up everywhere, I don't think there's enough police presence in town.
No, especially because we're steadily growing, like you said.
That's right. More and more people are coming in. You know, you really want to try and tap tourism and bring more and more people in and try and increase the downtown traffic. But at the end of the day, we've got children in this town to think about. You see the signs around town that say drive like your kids live here. Yeah. I'll take that a step further and let's think about this. How many of your kids, or how many people live in this town, how many of your kids go to school here? Okay. We've been shot down numerous times for requests to put resource officers in schools, all right? Right now, we've been granted the money, I think, to pay for one. And that one officer has to be a resource officer between Ponchatoula High School and Ponchatoula Junior High.
That's almost useless.
That's right, useless. And I'll give you a perfect example. I just went today, and very nice lady that teaches the drama club at Ponchatoula High School. She had the kids out there washing cars. I stopped by there to get my car washed, and I took a minute to talk to her for a second, kind of get some insight from her. I asked her what her thoughts were on resource officers in the school. What she think about it? Immediately she said, I think every school needs them, and she says, I think the Ponchatoula High School needs 2 of them. So to me, when you're talking about boots on the ground, you're talking about an educator that's there now that's been in the system for 20 plus years. If she's telling you she sees a need for 2 resource officers at high school, why do we not have them there?
Yeah, I can tell you, I was in law enforcement for 10 years. It wasn't until recently that I got it. I got to tell you, especially in high schools, yeah, two is required. Just because you got some of these kids are bigger than the police officer.
That's right.
Some of these high school kids are huge, and if you're gonna try to stop a fight or something like that, you're gonna need at least 2 people. If you're trying to stop an unruly one, the only way to safely and effectively try to subdue him is with 2 people. One person is just going to become a slugfest, and somebody's going to get hurt.
Well, not just that, but lately, Ponchatoula, once a year, it seems like they're going on lockdown for something.
It is, and it's really alarming. A lot of people ask me, hey, you're a businessman, why'd you stick your nose in this race, so to speak? My kids don't, and would say maybe you don't have a dog to hunt in this race. Speaking from a point of, my kids don't even go to school here. Okay, my kids go to Lancaster Elementary in Madisonville. Their mother lives over there. It's a great school. That's where we choose to send them. But being that I went through the school system here in both public, because I went to public schools all the way up until the 4th grade until I went into St. Joseph. So I've been in the public school system here, both at the elementary level and then at the high school level as well. And if my kids went to school here, that would be my number one concern is what safety do we have here for them? And then you look at it's. I just don't understand, if we're not here to protect the people first and the kids first, then what are we doing? It's a real simple question. What are we doing? I think we have to prioritize here and look at what this town really needs going forward.
Well, especially like we're talking about the Strawberry Festival. I guarantee there's more police officers at the Strawberry Festival than there is in those schools. I mean, where are the safety priorities? I mean, that should be.
That's right. You said, it's increased. It looks like it's increasing every year. So what's the next step? Do we get a school shooting here in Ponchatoula?
We were very close to that one a few years back when that lady passed away from her daughter's crazy ex-boyfriend.
That's correct.
That was a couple blocks away from the school.
That's right.
And I remember being on lockdown. They pulled cops from Hammond, I believe, and they were walking around with bulletproof vests. And when you said that Ponchatoula never paid, didn't buy the vest, I was thinking about that. I'm like, looking back on that was Hammond police that had the vest on. The Ponchatoula police were there didn't have them on. Only a few select people did.
That's right. And I think if first we got to protect the women and men who protect us, and the children got to come probably above them. You know what I mean? So, but we need those policemen and women out there. And people don't understand this, that when you're out there writing tickets, sure, you're bringing on added expense by bringing in officers and you're having to pay for salaries for these people. But if they're out there doing their job and they're writing tickets, that's an income as well. So it should offset itself.
Well, it also goes back to what you were saying earlier. I mean, there's money coming. There's money coming in.
Sure.
Where's it going?
That's what I'd like to see.
And that money could probably be going to putting some more officers on the street. So I can understand that, especially in some of the areas I've lived in. I mean, NOPD is a hotbed topic for a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
I've worked with some of them, and I know they would like to see more officers, and they always get the runaround with why they can't have them, why they're always hurting on money and stuff like that. It's a big thing that I know a lot of people are concerned about when it comes to local government. Is a lot of times they just really don't understand what's going on with their local government.
They don't. And that's one thing that's always been kind of, I guess, alarming to me is how your mayor doesn't fully support his policemen and women. Those are the people that are there for everyone at the end of the day to protect and serve. What are you doing standing up there, bounding you, hitting the gavel on the podium, talking about different topics around town? You're doing your part, but at least support those that are protecting and serving. So.
Yeah, there's an area I was going to bring. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Gretna Police Department, Gretna?
I don't.
City of Gretna. Okay, City of Gretna is actually known worldwide for actually having you're more likely to get pulled over in the city of Brandon than anywhere else in the world, and their police presence is ridiculous in their area.
I would love to see stats run on that to show what their level of crime rate is.
That's what I was gonna say. It's really low, and the people that live there, you would think like everybody go, oh well, they must hate that people getting pulled over all the time. They don't at all. In fact, they prefer it.
Yeah, my grandma lives in Brighton and she loves it. So like you said, crime is like almost non-existent to that point.
Look, police officers are not a bad thing at all. I think you have to find a very special person, just much like you would have to be an educator. You know, it takes very special people to be in those fields. All servicemen and women, you know, everyone. So I don't see why we don't try and support those people as much as possible, and they deserve our very best at the end of the day.
It blows my mind that a lot of it, like a lot of police officers around the country, because this goes by like the state and cities and stuff like that. But I feel like a lot of them should be required to go to some type of therapy too, along with that. Like not every day. I'm not saying every day or every week, but like once a month, just get checked to make sure you're okay, because that's a stressful job.
Well, I can guarantee you could probably look at some national stats and where you can look at some PTSD. You know, they just because these guys don't deal with a war over a year or 2 years of time, or you know, an assignment they have to go somewhere overseas. You know, these people are coming to this every day potentially. You know, so there's a level of stress there that's definitely going to go up. You know, offering them some type of avenue where they can go talk to people, which I think they already have, where they can go talk. It's a voluntary thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because like I'm not sure about Ponchatoula per se, but a lot of other places they don't have that.
Well, I think it's more when they get into some type of traumatic accident. If there's a shooting,
yeah.
You know, those guys have access to those counseling.
They do it incident based. I think what he's saying is just to try to get a baseline and a steady following baseline of how they're doing. Because there's always there's always the stress of the unknown.
Yeah.
It may not even be an event that happened, but the stress can build up when you day to day wondering if something's going to happen. If you're going to go, you know, enact an arrest or something in a bad area and you're a little stressed out about it, that can build up on you. So I have seen people who their personalities have changed over their law enforcement career. Not sure what the department can do about it, or if there's even liability to that. You know, there's certain
I believe in training, to be honest with you. I think multiple levels of training for these people. How do you interact with the public? You know, a police officer at the end of the day is not your enemy. He's there to protect you and help you. And to be honest with you, they go into, you know, buildings just like firefighters do for people they don't even know. You know what I mean? So these people are not our enemies. These people are our friends, you know. When they drive through the neighborhood, you know, wave at them. They're not there just to hound you and write a ticket. You know, just follow the law and do what you're supposed to do, and everybody can get along and be happy.
Would you be encouraging any, like, active shooter training or anything for the schools locally to practice maybe coordinating with other areas in active shooter events?
I would be 100% behind that. I mean, you see what's going on around the country as a whole. We talked about earlier the couple scares that we've had here locally. I think the first thing you go after is get these resources officers in there day one, so you got boots on the ground, and that gives you kind of your first line of defense. And then, yes, you most definitely follow up with the teachers for some type of training where you can, you know, do certain things. Now, I don't know, because we don't necessarily do that as far as the school board goes. That maybe something has to be implemented by them. But why can't we go to them with that idea and say, can we have this?
You know, for sure.
So
what about some other things you were talking about, creating jobs and stuff? What are your ideas for creating jobs locally?
Well, I'm a businessman. I know a lot of investors and people who look at things to make money. So I am actively talking to several now. Some may know, some may not know about doing some things in town. I was able to
park.
Oh yeah,
I saw a lot of the stuff about the park, and I was looking at it from the aspect of I'm trying to build a little playground for my son right now, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, hey, he's right, those hedges might be dangerous.
Yeah, it is, and it's just, you know, I don't think it's anything that's done intentionally. I just don't think you have. So you've got these council members, and you've got this mayor that's up in age. You know, everybody's running up in age. You know, they don't have kids. They don't see the day-to-day stuff that's going on. You know, so I think if you get people in there with some new, innovative thinkers that can come up with some new ideas, and you implement them. I mean, Kiwanis Park used to have a pool. Okay, Hammond's redoing their pool at Z-Murray Park. You know, so
a public pool is really nice.
I think this, because you do take on a huge responsible liability as far as the city goes when you have a public pool. But I would be interested to see this. What would the liability coverage be if we put a splash pad out there? You know, it's not something that somebody's going to fall in and drown, God help them, you know, but it's something that a kids can go out there in the summertime and play and have a good time. We can do very simple things like that. I mean, what's been done, if you guys have never been to Kiwanis Park, They put a little track around the park, which is a good improvement. But have you ever gone by there and tried to use the bathroom? I don't think the bathrooms has worked in the last 10 years, and they're locked. And you'd go in there and you would think, honestly, this would be a perfect place.
Legal.
That's right. I mean, I've gone out there and I've seen, kind of people that are loitering out there on the benches, drinking beer at a park. You got to clean the place up. I think that's what people want to see around town. They want to see this place revived. They want to see it brought back into light. And I think you can do that simply with a bunch of aesthetics. You know what I mean? Cleaning things up and just, having a little bit of pride where you come from,
One thing I definitely believe in is community. Because, and it might be because we're not online either. I don't see a lot of Ponchatoula activities for kids. And like I said, it might be because it's not online, but I would like to see that more. Just like parks doing
I talked about it in an interview with Kim Benitez when I mentioned Parks and Recreation. So I happen to know the gentleman that runs Chapapila Park. Mm-hmm. My kids play out of Coquille. I coach them out of there, so I'm always out at Chapapila Park out there in Covington. So I see a lot of what's going on at the other parks. And that's great that we have park. I think it's a great facility. Mm-hmm. It's one of the nicer ones I've seen around here. If you go out there and walk, it's a beautiful place. Don't get me wrong. But when I grew up, we played ball at JC Park in downtown. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know that land is owned by a family who willed it to the city, but on one condition, that it be used for Parks and Recreation. And if it ever does not used for Parks and Recreation, the family gets it back. And I know the JCs is trying to put a handicap park in there, but that's a large swath of land right there where you can have both. We can there used to be a little playground on the backside of the park. So couldn't we put a smaller handicap parking lot or a handicap playground right there on the backside of the fence and redo our JC Park? What that's going to allow you to do, if we redo our parks in downtown, we can have away games, from PARD when we have these big, huge baseball tournaments and softball tournaments and everything else. You have away games in downtown, all right? When those people filter out and go through town, they're going to come to downtown. They're not going to get on the interstate and go to Hammond or go back to St. Tammany Parish. So those are very, very easily implemented things that, like I said, I've reached out to the gentleman at Chapapila Park. He said it wouldn't be nothing to do. And what's the worst case scenario? You're going to hopefully you should generate more money coming into the city. Maybe you create 2 or 3 more jobs where you got some more full-time employees out there at PARD. You know what I mean? I'm sure some people around here would love to stay at home at times and not have to drive 40 minutes down south to the plaza to go work in the plants. Yeah. You know what I mean? We have some good places here. Pond Food employs a bunch of people. That's great. Not real sure. There's a rumor mill going around, something with Acadia and Cypress. That place has been here forever. What happens if we lose a place like that and you lose 30-something jobs? Those are all locals that are going to now be looking for a job. And where are they going to work? Because you go downtown, there's vacant buildings all over. Yeah. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I was talking to him about that recently. I've seen some new stuff too, but I see a lot of old stuff disappearing, and it's like, I don't know
what's going on with that middle part of downtown, but it seems like businesses are coming in and out of there like every 6 months.
Well,
or so.
One thing we have is the parking gets a little bit dicey downtown, but I think that's any downtown area you go to. I think the problem with downtown is this, and this is for the life of me, I don't understand. We've been one of the main veins coming out of New Orleans forever. So everybody calls us the first town north of the lake. Okay, so if we've been that main vein that comes out of New Orleans for all this time, why have we remained stagnant when you look at other main veins that come out the city, whether it be the Causeway, whether it be Slidell, that bridge, any main vein that comes out of their cities, you see massive developments around those places. And I think we're not looking for a massive development here, and I don't want people to get confused with that. What we're looking at is to modernize our town and keep that same small town quaint feeling that we have.
Well, see, that was kind of like what I was talking to him recently about, is moving out of the area that I'm currently in, and we're talking about different areas. And when people think the north, they think Slidell, Covington, and Mandeville, Ponchatoula, Hammond. And I was just thinking, it seems like y'all have the same opportunities in Mandeville and Covington and all, and they experienced huge growth and a lot of influx of people moving there.
I'll tell you how easy it is if you just get creative with your thinking, okay? So you start reading about the history of Ponchatoula and Strawberry Festival, et cetera, okay? When you go back and you read the history on the Strawberry Festival used to get kicked off every year with a baseball game, okay? If we really cleaned up Athletic Park out there and made it a nice venue to come to, then not only could you have, a 14-year, an older than 30-year-old teams go out there and have a league and have those leagues during the week, but wouldn't it be nice to have, I don't know if they already do. I haven't checked up on this. I'm not sure if the high school plays their games there still. I know they used to at Athletic Park. Somebody had told me I think they moved back out and played their regular ball games that they practice at Athletic Park.
Last I checked that, when I was there, that was accurate what you just said. Like,
that they practice at
Yeah,
athletic
they go
park and they
practice.
played at this.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be completely reversed. Think about the schematics there. Okay, go practice at Ponchatoula High School, but when you play your games on Friday night, come to downtown to a nice park. When you
Right.
get done, filter through downtown and eat at some of the restaurants and stuff like that. That's a place where people can ride their bikes and go watch a baseball game or walk to it. You know, one of the things I just sat down with some people earlier today, and one thing about the downtown recreation parks and sports facilities and everything downtown, that's where we were raised up. You know, I played ball at Kiwanis Park. I played baseball at JC Park, which is not even there anymore. You know what I mean? I played ball at Athletic Park. You know, and the feel we get, sometimes we hear people say, oh, well, just go to park. You know, well, we live in downtown. We're walking distance for everything. You see people riding around on golf carts. That's what downtown living is about. It's walking distance to things and amenities that, you know, you should be privy to.
Yeah,
so
not have to travel so far.
that's
to do
right.
stuff.
You know, and these downtown people are like, I don't want to go to the park. I want to be able to walk to the park with my child, hang out at the park, you know. And
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking about that when I was younger and all. You know, we spent a lot of time in our local areas doing stuff, and even where I live, it's just not like that anymore. And I was wondering if you think is that a cultural shift, or you think that's local responsibility involved in that?
No, I definitely don't think it's a local responsibility. Let me retract this for a second. I guess if there's any local responsibility at all, it's because we're not providing them with the amenities that they're going to enjoy.
It's not making it completely available.
Well, that also goes with the online thing. You can do surveys of stuff that, what are we interested in?
Look, online you can do everything.
That's what I'm
know,
saying.
The normal constituent is not going to be able to work a 9-to-5 job and then go up there early so they can write on a ticket what they want to talk about today. Why can't you, if you're a registered voter in town and you pay taxes, why can't you go online in that chat room, post your topic? When you get there, your council member goes, okay, here's everything my people and my constituents want to talk about today. You know, this is what we're going to talk about. You know, go up there and I don't know whoever came up with this whole rule deal where you go up there and you get 2 minutes to talk on a topic. But when you finally get fed up with something, okay, in town as a constituent, where you're going to take time out of your day and your evening from spending, you could have been spending with your kids, could have been spending with your wife, somewhere else like that. But you're going to take time out of your day to go up there because you're going to go up there and bring something to their attention, okay? Then you get up there and they're going to give you 2 minutes to talk, 3 minutes to talk, whatever it is. Like when something's festered that long in your mind until it's driven you to the point where now you're going to go up there and raise a bunch of hell about it, you need a lot longer than 2 minutes to go up there and voice yourself. You know, and I think that needs to be opened up.
Yeah, it sounds more like a way to shut somebody down before they get
It
started
does.
than it does to give them a chance.
It sounds like you're shutting people up, and that's another part of my platform is I'm standing with the people, right beside them, and I'm going to be a voice for them. You know, so that's what I'm here to do.
So what do you think about the mayor process so far? The whole campaigning, the process of finding out what's actually entailed in the job and all that. How are you feeling about that so far?
I knew what to expect. I've helped some people on some campaigns before, and I've been involved in a few different races. And I guess the one thing that people don't realize from a political standpoint is it takes a lot of money. It takes a tremendous amount of money to run against these political engines that you go up against. That's right, and I'm finding that out now. I'm kind of taking a page maybe out of Trump's playbook and some of these other people, but I'm funding my own campaign. I'm not taking any donations, and it's not cheap at all. But it's something I knew going into it, and I'm coming at them full blown.
So what do you like? I got a question about this because I was like, I'm trying to think of this from my standpoint. If I was going to run for mayor, there's some things I would want to know. I wonder if you're privy to that information. Like, if you want to ask questions about like how much money does the city actually take in? You are
privy to the information through public information requests, so you can go do that. But it's such a muddied up, clogged process. Why does it have to be that way? I don't understand it. We're in the information age. I don't go up there and fill out a booklet to go a public information request that everybody should be privy to. Well, it should be posted online somewhere. You should be able to find it online.
You hear a lot of people say that about the national stage. It's they're saying why can't I see where every single dollar of the tax money went?
Look, I 100% agree. I think if I had the most alarming thing to say about politics is that politicians love the gray areas. They love the gray areas because the gray areas is where all the sketchy stuff goes on. Okay, I've always been more of a black and white person. I see very clear, definitive answers to things. There's a right and a wrong to a bunch of stuff there is. There's going to be topics where you can't just say, hey, you're right and you're wrong. And that's when people need to come to the table and open up discussion and dialogue and figure out what a proper solution to the issue is. You know what I mean? But for a lot of these issues like this, like it's a freedom information act. You know what I mean? If it's a public request, Why do I have to request it? If it's public, it should be public knowledge. Have it out there where people can see it.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. Why do I have to work so hard to look for it? Why can't you? It's public knowledge, then you should have it publicly posted.
And how hard is that to scan a document and put it online?
Yeah,
You know,
well,
one thing I'd love to do is to see exactly how much that city wastes in paper and copies. You know, every major, even when I work with New York Life, Fortune 50 company, you know, we had booklets and stuff. And right on the tail end, when I was getting out of that industry, they were going paperless. And the real estate companies that I worked for before I opened my own, everybody was paperless. Look at me, I'm running around now with 2 cell phones writing contracts. You want to know why? I don't need paper.
Yeah, police
It's
departments now are actually doing
all your
paperless warrants on the phone. Yeah, you can come to your house. Here's your warrant. It's a really helpful tool for a law enforcement tool because, like, say you're at somebody's house and they're like, "Well, come back when you got a warrant." Used to be you had to actually physically leave, go write a bunch of paperwork. Now you just stay at the door, get it, judge sign it, and you're like, "All right, now I got a warrant."
Oh yeah, there's a lot of things I think we can do in and around town. At the end of the day, you just got to get people to the table and start talking about it. But then we've got to implement a really good plan moving forward. And people are going to say, "Oh, we don't have money for this. We don't have money for that." Well, let's talk about this. You know, in what other agency out there do you have something where you don't have to pay for what you use? You know, energy doesn't charge you a flat rate to go out there and say, "Oh, well, we're just going to charge you $50 a month. You use all you want." Okay, Ponchatoula is we're not on metered water. We're on a flat rate water system. Okay, so one of the things I would like to see from the people is would they support metered water in downtown? I don't see who would want to argue with pay for what you use. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you use it, then you should pay for it.
In some people's cases,
you know what I mean?
They may be using less. So
and I think if you went to them with a plan that says, okay, we can do new piping, we can do this, we can do that, and our water clarity is going to be great. Now instead of being on the news for brown water all the time, which is a deterrent for people to buy and build here and stay here, now we can promote some of the best water in the nation. We want you to come here. We've got some of the cleanest drinking water in the world. I mean, nationally, we're on failing infrastructure. Okay, if you look at across the landscape and you start really digging into the ultra millionaires and the billionaires across the world, okay, some of the biggest money people out there are investing in bottled water. You want to know why? Because you have millions sitting in Chicago, you have millions sitting in New York City, and when something goes wrong with that water, like it did in Flint, Michigan, what's going to go through the roof? Bottled water. Okay,
it is a safe bet.
It's essential for life, and you've seen it. How many people out there do you see have bottled water companies now?
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people, even when places have pretty clean water, they still like, nope, I don't trust it.
That's right.
Yep. Okay, so I got one last question for you that I'm curious about. Your competition, how do you feel about them? How do you feel about going up against some of them?
Not afraid at all.
Who do you think's your most serious competitor?
I think they're all serious competitors. You never want to discredit anybody. I come from.
I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying
I wasn't saying discredit them as far as being bad. I meant discredit them as far as I'm a football guy. I think that any given day, anybody can be beat. I don't care if you're the world champion and you've never been beat. The little smallest team over here can beat the biggest guy. It's a David versus the Goliath deal. So I don't want to look at anybody and say, "Oh, well, one's more than this, one's more than that." I think these are all three very formidable candidates. That'll bring something to the table, and hopefully at the end of the day, we'll all bring something to the table that makes our city better. I do think I'm going up against 2 career politicians, and I don't think that's what Ponchatoula needs moving forward. I think if you look at Ponchatoula over its history of time, from when we were a logging company and when we were bought by the acres, okay, we were strictly a logging company. Then comes along the Civil War. Then you had another industry that came along. We then turned into a farming company. Okay, after the farmers kind of went by the wayside and that kind of died off, we then transitioned into an antique city. I'm sorry, I hate to tell everybody in this town, but the antique city is just that. It's antique, and that's the reason you don't have new businesses coming here. That's why you don't have a whole lot of things going on in downtown. The place is falling apart. It's the antique city. I think we have to come up with a new slogan for our town to bring us into a new wave of industry.
Do you have one? A new slogan, or you have a figure?
New wave. That's my best slogan. That's my best slogan. We're known as the Green Wave, and I think we have a new wave coming in local politics around here as far as our city is concerned. I think that's very evident because you have 3 challengers that are now challenging a mayor who's seeking a 5th term, and I think you have every council member in town has an opponent, if not more than one opponent, except one that ran unopposed. I think the town is speaking very clearly when you have so many people running against these people that have been there for years. And one of the things that I'm going to advocate for in my run for this mayoral position right now is this. and I'm gonna keep saying it, and I'll say it till this election is over with. I am not a career politician. I do not want to be a career politician. I want to see term limits put on not only the mayor but the council men and women as well. I think when you don't have term limits, people get complacent. Okay, you almost get an authoritarian up there instead of a mayor. It's kind of a king, or a little Napoleon or whatever you want to call him. You know what I mean? You get that syndrome going on. And I think if you look around at how long these council members have been there, and you look at who they're tied to, I think that's exactly what you have. The council members and the council men and women, they are the ones that truly run this town. A mayor is there to say, this is the direction I think we need to go in. They are the ones that need to speak up for their constituents and say, this is the direction we would like to go in.
We've actually mentioned that in a previous podcast about term limits, saying that, with anytime you have a position like that where multiple people are in there for such a long period of time, what it typically breeds is alliances. And these alliances breed corruption. And then corruption seats itself very deeply.
Yeah. We got a belly full of it right now.
Exactly. So you've said that you were conservative in lifestyle, but I think you said you were independent technically. You were going to run.
I am. So if I was held by gunpoint and said, hey, you got to pick a party, I would probably side with being a Republican conservative Christian, because that's kind of how I was raised. I will tell you this: I've been registered as a Democrat all through my college days. When I was in college as a young man, I had some people.
All went through that.
Yeah, I had someone knock on my door and wanted me to vote, and had someone with them and said, "Hey, I can register you to vote." And they said, "What party are you on?" Heck, I don't know. So they wrote me down as a Democrat. So it is, to me, at the end of the day, parties is not where solution lies. Okay, I've said it before. Neither far left or far right is where you're going to find clear resolution. You've got to erase party lines and get people from both sides to come to the table and have open dialogue and discussion about how we want to move forward with the stuff going around town.
Well, sounds good to me.
Sounds good, yeah.
Got anything you want to add, Mark?
No, I've been listening. I'm a voter.
That's true. See, I was trying to come at this from a perspective of somebody that doesn't live around here. I think it gives me a little bit of clarity. In my own area, I'd probably be a little bit off. So I'm trying to understand this from discovering some of y'all's problems to hearing some of the solutions and looking from an outside perspective. So far, it sounds pretty good. If delivering is going to be the real proof in the pudding, but we'll see. Because I know it's hard to.
Yeah, it is. And at the end of the day, like I said, the council members are what's going to run this town. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to be able to go up there and just say, hey, we're doing this, we're spending money here, we're spending money there. That's not how this is going to work.
Which is what most people think, actually.
That's right.
It's funny. And most people don't realize. And that's something I hope that you bring to it, too, is clarity of how things work. A lot of people are really misled into the power of each of these political positions.
Yeah. I'm essentially the head coach. My ball players are my councilmen and women. They're the ones that are going to make us a success or not going to make us a success at all.
All right, so do you have a slogan for your campaign? Did y'all have anything put together for that?
Bub City, new wave, not a career politician. There's a million of them out there.
And that was the one you told me.
Yeah, a friend of mine actually went through a little city somewhere, and I forget. I think it was in Texas somewhere, and there's a little place there that's Bub City, and it was just unique because my name's not a real,
that's what
not
I'm
out there a lot. You don't see a lot.
I've never heard that name before, and you're actually Bub Tucker II, right?
I am.
Your dad was Bub Tucker. So.
I was. So I'll kind of tell you guys kind of where that is derived from. So the story goes, how I understand it, that I had a great uncle, and his nickname was Bub, and my dad was named after him. And then I don't think that my mother and my father found out what gender I was going to be, so they had girl names picked out with no boy names. So after a day or two kind of stewing on it, they just named me Bub Tucker II. I do not have a middle name. It's been a conversation piece all my life. So I kind of use that as a joke, and I tell people all the time, you don't mess it up. You don't spell it backwards, you'll mess it up. So it's one of those things, and it's one of those things that, people remember you by your name a lot of times. Mine's very unique. People remember it. So I'm just, like I say, I'm trying to keep a good name for myself and build a legacy for my kids and everyone moving forward. And at the end of the day, just have a little bit of pride where you come from,
All right, well, we appreciate having you on, man. It was enlightening to talk to you, and we wish you luck in your mayor race.
Yes, sir. Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
No problem.